people of the 4th District of Kansas have put the right person in charge of their district. He's Congressman Ron Estes, and he joins us now on the Patriot Mobile Newsmaker line. Congressman Jeff Stein filling in for Todd. Good to talk to you again, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, Jeff. Thanks for having me on today.
Well, thank you for taking time from the busy work in Washington. I know that people understand across the country, whether it's my home state of Iowa, yours of Kansas, that without some sort of action, our taxes are going to go way up next year. So where are we at on getting something done so that doesn't happen?
Yeah, you're right. Everybody will see a tax increase. Roughly 95% of the people will see a tax increase next year. So we're going through a two-step process in Washington right now in order to help get it through the House and the Senate. And the first step is getting a budget resolution passed by both the House and the Senate. And this week, it sounds like the Senate's now agreed to schedule a vote next week on their form of the budget resolution. We passed ours out of the House, and we're continuing to move forward. And then the next step will be is how do we make sure that we don't have that 22% tax increase that's going to happen for the average American across the country. So we're working on it. I'm on Ways and Means Committee, which obviously is our tax writing committee here in the House, and we're focusing on how do we make sure that we keep all those good provisions that came out of 2017 and were so beneficial for Americans and for more jobs, created more jobs, increased salaries, reduced taxes for businesses and individuals, and it, for the most part, helped middle and lower income folks, both from a lower tax as well as higher income. So it's important that we get our work done, and the quicker we get it done, the better. We've been really focusing on trying to get it done in the next few months so that people can start making decisions and plan ahead for 2026 and be prepared.
That is one of the things with regard to planning as a business. You need certainty with regard to rules and regulations, and obviously the rate of taxation is one of the chief among those that we care about. And this is going to sound like a flip question, and I don't mean it to be, but why can there not simply be a one-sentence bill that says the expiration date of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 is hereby extended for 10 years or 20 years or something? Why is it more complicated than that? I understand everybody wants to get their hand in and make things better, but could we not just extend and then improve?
You know, part of the dynamic here really is around the rules in the Senate regarding the filibuster. And to pass a bill that affects policy on the Senate side, you typically need 60 votes. And the one exception to that is if you're doing a budget reconciliation process, when you have, in this case, a majority Republicans in the House and Republicans in the Senate and a Republican in the White House, we can craft a bill that addresses spending or taxes and do it with just 51 votes in the Senate. So that's why it gets much more complicated to talk through that, because there's some certain rules over in the Senate that address that. It certainly has to make sure that it addresses only spending and or tax provisions and working through that. So it makes it a little bit more complicated than just a simple extension.
And again, you get one good shot at it, right? Because of those rules in the Senate, you can't just go back multiple times. It's not as easy to do. Are you feeling there's good momentum? I mean, I sense some optimism from you, but I'm just wondering if you're really feeling that this is going to get across the finish line early enough in the process so that, again, the businesses in your district in Kansas can plan for the next fiscal year.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel much more optimistic. This week in particular, the discussions between Senate leadership and House leadership and the White House have really reached a good strong threshold, and the Senator Thune announced that he's going to actually move a vote next week on the first step in the process, and that's what we have to have passed. The House has already done its work on that budget resolution. The Senate has to pass one there, and then we have to reconcile if there's any differences between the two. And then we actually focus on all the provisions that we want to address, which includes providing more funding for border security and national defense. It includes how do we save some money with all of our spending that's out there across the entire federal government. So we've got some of those provisions in the bill, and then all of the tax provisions to making sure that Americans get to keep their money in their pocket that they've had since 2017 and not get taken out of their pocket into the future.
Congressman Ron Estes joining us. He represents the 4th District of Kansas. He's joining us on the Patriot Mobile Newsmaker line on the Todd Starnes Show. Jeff Stein filling in for Todd today. Everybody talks about controlling spending, and then when you start getting specific, well, obviously nobody wants their stuff to be cut. That's what makes this kind of difficult, doesn't it?
It really does. And as you work through some of these different issues, there's lots of dynamics, lots of different directions, and part of it's just over decades of looking at one particular provision or a different particular provision, and it makes it much more complicated than it needed to be. And we need to have a philosophy that we want to implement a tax program going forward that's pro-economic growth and pro-family, and looking at what kind of good provisions you can put in there. And as part of that, how do we look at not doing so many things that subsidize or make larger government spending programs, but addresses some of those issues that are some common sense, some of the things that we're already seeing with the work that President Trump and his DOGE team's doing, working on Good America First policies.
Obviously, folks, in the heartland, your state, my state, we care a lot about agriculture. It's what keeps us afloat, and it's what feeds the world. And we're 2 years behind in a 5-year farm bill, and that's really having fallout across the farm belt. Do we have any sense of whether this is going to get moved before the August recess? I was told, by the way, by one of your colleagues, it was Congressman Randy Feenstra from Iowa's 4th District in January, that they hoped maybe they could get something done by the end of July. And I thought, that's not as optimistic as I had hoped. What are you hearing about a farm bill, which, again, the majority of which is not for farmers, it's for food distribution? Yeah,
you really hit the nail on the head. It's called the Farm Bill, but it probably should be called the Farm and Food Stamp Bill, since 80% or more goes into food stamp provisions. Excuse me. I am confident that we'll pass a farm bill this year. The problem over the last couple of years got caught up into politics, and I was severely disappointed after the election last year. I expected that the Democrat majority in the Senate would actually make a decision in the lame duck session to move the farm bill forward, and unfortunately that didn't happen. And now that there's Republican majorities in both the House and the Senate, it'll be easier to do. However, there has to be some accounting, particularly on the Senate side, for Democrats because of the filibuster process they have over there. But there's been a lot of hard work done. Chairman V.T. Thompson over here on the House and the Agriculture Committees has done a lot of work in looking at those provisions and looking at how do we move forward. And so we just need to get it done so that it's authorized for the next 5 years and then move forward.
Exit question for Congressman Ron Estes of Kansas on the Todd Starnes Show. The first half hour I spent just marveling at this new administration, this new Department of Justice, new FBI, working with state officials, taking down MS-13 bad guys. I mean, what's your reaction when you see what happened in the news conference this morning and you see all of the other activity going on as opposed to the inactivity or perhaps malfeasance of the past?
Yeah, it really is a difference. And it's a breath of fresh air that you have an administration that comes in and really, puts America first through so many of the policies, so many of the programs they're working on. I kind of use the analogy that we're running 90 miles an hour as we're trying to work through these things. And a lot of these things that have been built up over decades have been allowed to grow. The government has bloated in so many ways. And in some cases, it got to where their mindset of, well, we have some money, so let's just go spend it here, go spend it there, even if that didn't make sense, but because they had the money. And so there's a fresh set of eyes that are coming in that are actively looking at how do we make this government more efficient? How do we address this deficit issue that we have? We can't continue borrowing one out of every $5 that's spent. And we're doing that just to fund today's lifestyle, and we're mortgaging our kids' and grandkids' future by borrowing all this money just to spend today. And we've got to be smarter. We've got to be better at and more fiscally responsible.
That's the common sense approach we elected. And keep up the good work so we can get that goal across the finish line, Congressman. Appreciate your time today.
All right, great. Thank you, Jeff.